At a small get-together with friends, one of my husband Ryan's close friends asked him in French, "The girl you've been seeing on the side, Lily, is 2 months pregnant. What do you plan to do?" Ryan smiled, the corners of his lips curving up, as he attentively peeled shrimp and picked food onto my plate. Then, switching to French, he calmly answered, "I don't like kids. I'll have Jessica give birth to the baby and take it abroad to raise. It'll be a kind of backup." I kept eating the shrimp, but tears slipped silently down my cheeks. Ryan grew nervous immediately. "What's wrong?" he asked. I wiped away my tears and gave him a smile. "The dipping sauce is too spicy." But the dipping sauce was clearly just soy sauce. The truth was, my tears were because I understood every word he said in French. Ryan must have forgotten that I had been a top student in French during college, and he had learned the language just to chase me more easily. As my thoughts returned to the present, I realized Ryan was looking at me across the table, trying to figure out what was on my mind. I turned my head away and reached for the handle of the lemon tea pitcher to pour myself a drink. But as soon as my fingers touched it, Ryan took it from me. "Sweetheart, how can I let you do something so small yourself?" he said as he poured the tea for me. Sitting across from us, his friend Jason chuckled, clutching his jaw and teasing, "You two are so lovey-dovey. Can't you tone it down a bit? You're killing this single guy with all that sweetness." Ryan shot him a glance and smiled faintly. "You're only realizing now that my wife wears the pants? If it bothers you, just hold it in. At least let me enjoy my meal." Jason put on a pitiful expression, but his eyes sparkled as if he were watching a great drama unfold. I tilted my head and looked at him. The warmth I used to have in my eyes was gone. But Ryan didn't notice. He leaned closer and kissed me lightly on the lips. "What's wrong, baby?" he asked gently. "You look dazed, staring at your husband." "Yeah," I said softly. "I just want to see clearly whether this man who claims to love me so much is truly faithful." Ryan froze, and for a brief second, panic flashed in his eyes. But he quickly composed himself, and when he looked at me again, his gaze was so full of emotion it was like he wanted to wrap me up in it. "Don't joke like that, sweetheart," he said. "I couldn't bear the consequences if you ever left me." I smiled faintly and withdrew my hand from where he had pressed it to his chest. So he still remembered what I once told him, that when I agreed to be with him, my only request was loyalty. I had told him, "If one day I find out you've been unfaithful, I won't forgive you." Back then, Ryan's heart and eyes were full of me. When I said those words, he had grabbed my hand and promised, "You're the treasure I chased for a whole year. I'll never do anything to make you sad. If I ever betray you, may I grow old alone." Yes, because of my looks, I was never short of suitors. From the first moment Ryan saw me, he had made up his mind to win me over. I had been deeply hurt by my first love and had built walls around my heart, but eventually Ryan's persistence moved me and I gave him a chance. But 4 months ago, I found out he had a young girl on the side. In that moment, my belief in true love collapsed. I thought I would lash out, scream, confront him, but instead I remained surprisingly calm. I stayed by his side like nothing had happened. I sat through the withdrawal, emotionally numb, quietly planning the rest of my life. Now, with just 1 week left, my visa will be ready. I'll be able to leave Ryan and start a new life of my own. After dinner, Ryan leaned drunkenly against my shoulder. "Honey, let's go home," he mumbled. Jason followed behind us and called out, "Ryan, aren't you coming to the next party with me? Everyone else is already there, we're just waiting on you." Ryan didn't even turn around. Still snuggled up next to me, he replied, "No, not going. My wife needs to take her medicine. I have to take her home." Jason let out a tsk, but didn't press him further. Just then, I received a text message from Lily. "Take a guess. Do you think Ryan will go home with you tonight to make sure you take your meds, or will he come out and party with me instead?" My eyes stayed fixed on the phone screen. Ryan noticed I had stopped walking. Ryan turned his head to look at me too. "What's wrong, honey?" I stared hard at the phone screen and replied deliberately, "Nothing. Just a little provocation from the side chick." His brows drew together as he reached out, trying to take my phone from my hand. Just then, his own phone rang. The ringtone I knew was specifically set for Jessica. I held the phone out to him. "Still want to see?" Ryan's gaze trembled slightly. "Babe, I'm drunk, don't be mean to me, he said in a tone laced with false vulnerability as he nuzzled closer against my neck. I pushed his head away and said calmly, "Go ahead and answer. I've been waiting for this moment." Only then did Ryan sit up straight, ready to explain that he needed to step aside to take the call. But before he could even speak, I was already walking toward the front entrance, heading straight to the driver waiting by the car. Surprise flickered across Ryan's face, but when he heard the sweet voice on the other end of the line, his expression instantly softened again. Through the car window, I could see clearly the joy lighting up Ryan's face as he answered. His eyes were bright and focused, nothing like the drunk man he had just been. I looked away, forcing myself to swallow the bitterness rising inside. I knew he wouldn't be going home with me tonight. Sure enough, right after the call ended, I received a message from Jessica. "Lois, you lost. Right now, the person Ryan cares about most is me and our baby." A tear slipped down my cheek. When Ryan opened the car door and looked inside, I quickly turned my head away. He got in and reached out to turn my face toward him. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" Hearing the concern in his voice made my chest ache. I took a deep breath, hiding the hurt in my eyes, and said lightly, "I'm just tired. Will you take me home?" Ryan smiled and gently rubbed the top of my head. "Babe, I'd love to go home with you, but something came up at work and I need to handle it. I'll be back early to be with you, okay? Don't be upset." As he said that, he cupped my face and leaned in to kiss me. I pressed my finger to his lips, my eyes shifting past him to look out the car window at Jason. "Someone's filming. Stop being so clingy, just go already," I said flatly, then told the driver, "Drive, now." About 2 minutes later, my phone rang again. It was Jessica. "Lois, didn't it make your skin crawl to kiss Ryan just now?" she sneered. "That mouth of his has kissed every inch of me." She didn't finish the rest of her sentence, only let out a smug, suggestive laugh. My hand trembled as I hung up. I told the driver to pull over, then leaned over the guardrail and threw up violently. The nausea didn't stop for a long time. By midnight, there was still no sign of Ryan coming home. I checked my phone multiple times. Jessica didn't send any more messages. The only explanation was that the two of them were tangled up somewhere, indulging themselves. I let out a bitter laugh, stepped off the bed barefoot, and started gathering all the gifts Ryan had ever given me. Looking at those luxurious, expensive presents, I felt momentarily dazed. I remembered back when we first got together. Anything I liked, even if I merely glanced at it, Ryan would buy for me. I had once believed that someone who paid such attention to me must mean I was the happiest woman in the world. But now, I submitted a delivery request, arranging for the packages to be sent to Jessica a week from now. Since his heart was no longer mine, it made sense to send these things to the woman he loved the most. As I was cutting up the suit I had once gifted to Ryan with a pair of scissors, he returned home. From the bedroom, he called out for me. I answered flatly, but my hands never stopped moving. Ryan walked into the closet. When he saw what I was doing, the small stone box he was holding nearly slipped from his hand. "Babe." He rushed over and crouched down, grabbing my wrist. "What are you doing?" I turned my head to look at him. Ryan's face had gone pale, and he stared at me as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. I gave him a faint smile and gently pushed his hand away. "3 stray cats showed up in the garden," I said. "I thought I'd use this shirt to make them a little nest." Ryan pressed his lips into a tight line. After a moment, he said, "But honey, that shirt is the only gift you've ever given me. I don't even usually wear it because I want to keep it nice." I lowered my gaze and continued gathering the scraps of fabric in my hand. Of course, I knew it was the only thing I had ever given him. I did it on purpose. Ryan kept his eyes down, watching my movements silently. It took another moment before he finally said, "You destroyed my gift. I want you to give me a new one." I lifted my eyes to him with a smile. "Okay," I said easily. "Actually, I have 2 gifts to give you." His eyes lit up instantly. He gently pulled me into his arms, voice filled with excitement. "You really prepared gifts for me? Where are they?" Listening to the delight in his voice, I felt bitterness surge quietly inside me. I didn't push him away, just looked past him toward the stone box sitting nearby. The aroma from it wafted through the air. I knew it contained the seafood porridge he'd brought for me. Because of my weak health, Whenever he made me upset or felt guilty, he'd always go out of his way, across half the city, to buy me my favorite porridge. It only showed just how happy Jessica must have made him tonight, for him to still take a detour to get it even after midnight. I let out a self-deprecating laugh and said softly, "Just wait, you'll find out in a week." Ryan didn't press the issue. He simply led me to the dining room and placed the porridge in front of me. His eyes dodged mine slightly. "You hardly ate tonight. You must be hungry. Have a little something." I picked up the spoon and gently stirred the porridge, but as soon as he turned to pour water, I deliberately tipped the container over, spilling it everywhere. Ryan turned back and immediately panicked, rushing over to check if I'd been burned or hurt. I watched him coldly. He froze the moment he caught the look in my eyes, icy and distant. For a moment, he just stared at me, fingers twitching slightly. "If you want to eat," he said softly, "I can go get more for you in the morning." I could feel the tremble in him. If this had been the past, I would have melted at his cautious, gentle tone and wrapped my arms around him, whispering sweet things. But now, I simply stood up and said flatly, "Don't bother, my tastes have changed. I don't like seafood porridge anymore." What I really meant was, I don't like you anymore. Ryan didn't understand what was happening, but he could clearly sense something had changed. Over the next 2 days, he stayed by my side constantly, not leaving me for even a moment. The story of his rise was only just beginning. After more than half a year, I had seen with my own eyes how hard he worked to reach this point. So in the past, when he had little time for me, I always supported and understood him. Even so, how could I not long for him to spend more time with me? If this had been before, and he had put everything aside just to stay with me, I would have been overjoyed. But now, as I looked at the man who wouldn't leave my side, all I felt was a pounding headache. Even when Jessica's special ringtone rang again and again on his phone, Ryan didn't pick up. He didn't even make a move to leave. The day I would leave the country was drawing closer, and I still hadn't gotten the divorce papers signed. So I resorted to a tactic I used to despise. I deliberately changed into a revealing silk slip dress, got close to Ryan in the most suggestive poses, and took countless intimate, ambiguous photos, then sent all of them to Jessica. Sure enough, Ryan's phone rang again immediately. He reached out to hang up, but I stopped his hand and answered the call for him. Ryan shot a sharp look at me, but I met his eyes calmly. "Answer it," I said. "What if it's urgent?" Ryan reluctantly turned the call to silent mode. He opened his mouth to speak several times, but seeing that my expression remained utterly calm, he couldn't bring himself to say a word. Eventually, Ryan finally opened his mouth. "I'm going to take a quick call. I'll be right back to sit with you." I picked up a bag of chips on the table and started eating, but my ears were focused on the sounds coming from Ryan's side of the conversation. I could faintly hear Jessica sobbing, and Ryan's voice, soft, patient, was comforting her. When the call finally ended, he walked over looking hesitant. I immediately offered kindly, "If you've got something to handle, go. You don't need to stay with me." Ryan let out a visible sigh of relief, but his hand still clutched his phone tightly. "Lois, please don't be mad at me. The company's just getting back on track, and..." I cut him off gently. "I understand. Go on, really." With nothing more to say, Ryan hesitated only a moment longer before turning to leave. But just before stepping out, he looked back at me seriously. "Give me 1 week to sort things out. After that, I'll take time off to go on that trip with you, the one you've always wanted." When I was young, before my parents divorced, they had taken me to live for a while in a mountain town called Cloud Ridge. Ever since then, I'd always had a nostalgic attachment to it. After getting together with Ryan, I brought it up many times, hoping he would take me back there, but he always said he was too busy with work. But I had seen with my own eyes the photos Jessica posted online, photos of her and Ryan vacationing in Cloud Ridge. That very same trip he never had time to take with me. Now, a week from today, Jessica's pregnancy would hit the 3-month mark. The baby would be more stable, and only now did Ryan suddenly feel free to take me on the trip. But the truth was, I no longer needed it. I lowered my head and smiled faintly, but still nodded in agreement. After Ryan left, I received another message from Jessica. "Lois, no matter how hard you try, Ryan still chose me." I didn't bother replying. While Ryan was still on the road, I reached out to Jessica myself to propose a deal. Jessica, you want to be Mrs. Carter, don't you? Help me with something, and I'll make it happen. She was thrilled, eager even, and afraid I might change my mind. From the moment Ryan left her side, she started sending me one intimate photo after another, her and Ryan in various states of closeness. I saved every single one. At 10 p.m., just as expected, Ryan came home drunk. As soon as he walked in, he clung to me, apologizing sweetly. His body reeked of perfume and was covered in marks that weren't mine. For once, I didn't snap. I comforted him patiently, unlike anything I'd done before. Tears welled up in Ryan's eyes. Babe, you're so amazing. If you wanted the stars in the sky, I'd find a way to bring them down to you. My eyes lit up slightly. I knew this was the moment. I brought out the divorce agreement and gently coaxed him into signing it. After putting the pen down, he glanced at the document and reached for it. Honey, what is this? I quickly scooped it away with a smile. A check. Didn't you say you'd buy me a star? As the CEO of his company, Ryan still retained some clarity even when he was drunk. If I wanted him to sign without knowing what it was, I had to play the emotional card, keep him completely lost in the moment. I couldn't help but smirk. The plan worked better than I expected. I just didn't know how Ryan would react once he sobered up and learned the truth. I stored the signed divorce papers inside the custom pink safe I had prepared in advance. I planned to give it to him as a gift before I left. I placed the safe in the most obvious spot in the room to stir his curiosity and heighten his expectations. Once everything was in place, I sat cross-legged beside the couch where Ryan was fast asleep and began organizing all the photos and videos Jessica had sent me. Ryan must have heard something because he stirred awake and looked over with groggy eyes. Reaching out to me, he mumbled, "Babe, what are you doing? Come cuddle with me." Watching him act so childishly affectionate made my stomach turn. I couldn't take it. I slapped a hand over my mouth and rushed downstairs to the bathroom, where I threw up violently. Only after emptying the bitter bile in my stomach did I feel the slightest bit of relief. Leaning against the cool bathroom tiles, I found myself stunned. Was I really at the point where I was physically repulsed by Ryan's touch? The noise must have completely woken him up. Ryan stumbled into the bathroom, unsteady but alert. He anxiously checked me over to see if I was okay. When he realized I only looked a little pale, he finally let out a breath of relief. "Babe, what's wrong? You haven't been yourself lately." He hugged me tightly, his arms squeezing around me with increasing pressure. The mix of alcohol and perfume on his body made me nauseous. I turned my face away. "Let go, please. I can't stand the smell of perfume." Ryan flinched, his eyes flickering nervously as he looked at me. I forced a smile and said lightly, "Why the guilty look? Someone who didn't know better would think you've done something you shouldn't have." He grew even more anxious, clutching my shoulders as he stammered, "Lois, no, I haven't. I would never do anything to hurt you." His rambling was pathetic, almost comical. I cut him off with a smile and said, "I believe you." Then I added softly, "Get some sleep." That night, as I lay in bed, Ryan held me tightly. No matter how I resisted, he didn't budge. I was afraid if I fought too hard, he'd start to get suspicious and ruin everything. So I gave up, staring out the dark window, swallowing the nausea and counting silently in my head to calm myself. The truth was, once I had the signed divorce agreement in hand, I could leave. But Ryan wasn't the same as before. His career was now thriving, and his methods were no longer gentle or predictable. Knowing how possessive he was, I understood that if I didn't leave all at once, cleanly, there'd be no second chance. If I startled him too early, I'd never be able to get out. My visa would be ready in 2 days. So for now, the only thing I could do was wait for daylight. When morning came, Ryan didn't get up right away. He lay beside me quietly, waiting for me to wake up. The moment I opened my eyes, he scooted close and wrapped himself around me. I pushed him away, annoyed. "You haven't even brushed your teeth. Gross." He looked at me carefully, noticing the small expressions and gestures that used to be so familiar. And then, unexpectedly, he chuckled. "What are you laughing at?" I asked, scooting away. He suddenly pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly and whispering, "This feels so good. You're acting like the old you again." Hearing him say that made me oddly pleased. It meant his guard was slowly lowering. Just 2 more days, and I'd be free. I coaxed him into going to the office. At first, he didn't want to leave and suggested taking me on a little drive instead. But I pointed at the pink safe I'd placed in the middle of the room and said mysteriously, "Didn't you want your gift? It's right there. If you don't work hard today, I'll destroy what's inside." Ryan's eyes lit up. He fiddled with the safe for a long time, but he couldn't open it. When I refused to give him the code, he finally gave up and agreed to head to work. Before leaving, he repeatedly confirmed, "Babe, you'll tell me the code in 2 days, right?" I nodded. "Of course. I hope you'll like what's inside." Ryan looked me dead in the eyes. "As long as it's from you, Lois, I'll love it, no matter what it is." I didn't say a word, just smiled. A small part of me suddenly regretted that I wouldn't be there to see his face when he finally learned the truth. I imagined it would be a sight to behold. After he left for work, I went to the women's hospital. I didn't expect to run into Jessica, who was there for a prenatal checkup. Her belly had started to show, and she wore a radiant expression as she looked me up and down. Well, Lois," she smirked. "What a coincidence. What are you doing here? Trying to treat infertility?" Her tone was provocative, but I didn't feel the slightest bit upset. What she said wasn't wrong. I did have trouble getting pregnant, not because I was infertile, but because I had injured my body years ago, jumping into a freezing river to save Ryan. I never told him the truth because I didn't want him to feel guilty. So he had always believed I didn't want kids simply because I didn't like them. I smiled faintly and ignored her, walking straight toward the doctor's office. Jessica followed behind, curious. She stood there and watched me as I spoke to the doctor, saw me get paperwork printed, and then froze when I stepped out holding the termination confirmation. Her eyes widened in shock. "Lois?" I handed her the document and said quietly, "The day I found out Ryan was cheating with you was also the day I found out I was pregnant." As I thought it over, I realized I still couldn't forgive him, even if I was carrying his child. Jessica didn't mock me the way she usually did. Instead, she looked at me with a strange, unreadable expression. I pulled the abortion certificate from her hand and said calmly, "I'm leaving tomorrow night. I hope you can keep him by your side these next 2 days. Let me have some final peace." Jessica didn't say anything. After examining the paperwork over and over again to make sure it was real, she finally nodded. I gave her a small smile. "Thanks." Just as I turned to leave, she suddenly called out, "Lois, don't you hate me?" I paused, then couldn't help but let out a laugh. Still facing away from her, I replied slowly, "Hate? Not really. If it weren't you, it would have been someone else. A man who cheats will cheat eventually." I turned slightly, my voice calm and unhurried. "You were just the first woman who seemed new and exciting to him. But you won't be the last." Then I added, "Still, Jessica, I do have to thank you. If it weren't for you, I might never have realized. There's nothing in this world more important than loving myself." True to her nature, Jessica kept clinging to Ryan like a lovesick puppy, and in the end, he really didn't come home. Instead, he sent me 2 texts. 1, "I have to work late tonight. When I get home, I'll bring you that new porridge flavor you wanted." 2, "Babe, go to sleep early. Don't stay up. Your husband will be missing you the whole time." I stared at the nauseating messages without any emotion, then quietly deleted them. Not long after, Jessica sent me a few photos. I opened them. The first showed her and Ryan sitting across from each other at a candlelit dinner. The second was of Ryan joining her for prenatal bonding exercises. The third was of the 2 of them tangled up together in bed. The fourth showed him helping her bathe. The fifth, Ryan in a bathtub, clearly unable to contain himself. I calmly scrolled through the live pornography of their love life. Then I added the images into a video montage I had been compiling. Once it was done, I emailed it to myself and scheduled it to be automatically sent to both Ryan and Jessica at 7 p.m. the next evening. I figured they'd be thrilled to receive my little love story gift. What I didn't expect was that at midnight, Ryan came home. At the time, I was doing the final preparations. He burst in, cold air clinging to his body, and rushed toward me before I could even react. He wrapped his arms around me tightly, burying his face against my ear as his voice trembled. "Babe, I've had this awful feeling all night, like something important is about to disappear from my life forever. I missed you so much." His voice was muffled, his grip strong. He held me so tightly I could barely breathe. I had no choice but to use all my strength to push him away. "Don't overthink things. You're just tired from work," I said, giving him a convenient excuse. But when he heard that, he didn't even try to argue. He just lowered his head and held my hand tightly. "Babe, I've taken care of everything at the company. Starting tomorrow, I'm staying home to be with you." My heart immediately clenched with panic. Had he figured something out? Before I could think it through, Ryan spoke again, his voice almost pleading. "Please don't push me away. Promise me, Lois. Promise me you'll never leave me." His eyes locked onto mine, intense and full of desperation. I furrowed my brows slightly, unsure how to respond. I remembered back when we were still in the honeymoon phase of our relationship, he used to ask me the same thing over and over. He was so afraid I would leave him, and back then I had loved him so deeply. I made him promise after promise, over and over again. "As long as you never betray me," I would say, "I'll love you for the rest of my life." Now, staring into his tear-filled eyes, I let out a soft sigh and replied quietly, "Ryan, I'll say the same thing I always have. As long as you don't betray me, I'll love you for the rest of my life." Ryan didn't press further. He didn't say anything else. He simply held me tightly in his arms. His voice was low and muffled as he whispered, "Babe, I swear I'd never do anything to hurt you. I can't bear the thought of you leaving me. I just can't." His tone was so serious, so heavy, I couldn't tell if he was trying to convince me or himself. The next day, the time I had set to leave was drawing near, but Ryan still showed no sign of leaving the house. Growing anxious, I called Jessica. "I need one more favor from you." Not long after I hung up, Ryan's phone rang. The ringtone repeated 3 or 4 times before he finally, with obvious irritation, answered the call. When he hung up, he came toward me with a dark expression on his face, hesitating before saying, I looked up at him seriously and interrupted, "Go. Handle it." Maybe on some subconscious level, Ryan sensed something was wrong. Before leaving, he kept looking back at me with reluctance, repeatedly telling me, "Wait for me, babe. I'll be home soon." I had no choice but to walk him to the door. "Go on," I said gently. "I'll be here when you get back." Only then did Ryan drive away. I watched his car disappear around the corner before turning around and placing both the abortion certificate and the signed divorce agreement inside the pink safe. Then I texted him the password. "Your gift is ready. Open it when you get home." He replied instantly, "Okay, babe, I'll be home soon." I didn't reply. Instead, I picked up the suitcase I'd prepared long ago and headed straight to the airport. Right before boarding, the scheduled email I'd set up, the one containing the video montage of him and Jessica, was successfully sent. Just as I was about to remove my SIM card, Ryan's call came in. I declined the call, removed the card from the slot, snapped it in half, and without looking back, boarded the flight to France. At the same time, Ryan sat frozen in his car, staring at the video on his phone. It was a montage of every moment he'd shared with Jessica, from the day they met, all the way up to last night. And the person who had compiled it was his wife, the woman he claimed to love most, me, Lois. He whipped his head toward Jessica and roared, "You contacted Lois behind my back? Have you completely forgotten what I said when we first got together?" Jessica shrank into the corner of the passenger seat, her eyes welling with tears. "Ryan, please don't be mad. The baby and I can't take this kind of stress." Ryan's breathing grew heavier and more erratic. Scenes of my strange behavior over the past few weeks replayed in his mind like a movie, his dread mounting with every second. He suddenly kicked Jessica out of the passenger seat, eyes sharp as blades, nearly bursting with fury. "Jessica, if anything happens to Lois, I swear I'll make you pay." He slammed on the gas and sped off toward home. He called me again and again, but my phone was disconnected. Panic tightened around his heart like a vice, and the more he thought about it, the faster he drove. When he finally arrived home, the house was completely empty. The home that used to be full of life and warmth was now so silent it echoed. A chill ran through his body. He didn't want to believe I'd left. Red-eyed and desperate, he searched every room, shouting my name. Then his gaze fell on the pink safe. Holding on to the last thread of hope, he opened it. When he saw the 2 documents inside, the abortion certificate and the divorce agreement, his legs gave out, and he collapsed to the floor. tears streaming uncontrollably down his face. He picked up the certificate with trembling hands, clutching it to his chest as his cries deepened into gut-wrenching sobs. The wave of regret hit him like a tidal wave, leaving him gasping for air. He gripped the paper tightly, his voice breaking into a hoarse scream. "Where are you? Lois, come back, please come back, I was wrong." Meanwhile, Jessica, shaken from being shoved out of the car, miscarried. In the back of the ambulance, she called Ryan. But when he heard her voice, fury consumed him. "You deserve this, Jessica. You deserve every bit of it. You should have died. If it weren't for you, Lois would still be here." On the other side of the world, I landed in France and went straight to my childhood friend, Tiana. We hadn't seen each other in years, and I thought things would be awkward. But Tiana didn't give awkwardness a chance to settle in. She chatted excitedly, rambling about everything new in her life. Eventually, she stopped and looked at me curiously. "So, what are you planning to do in France?" I had actually made plans long ago. Before I married Ryan, I was a moderately well-known online singer. But after marrying him, I gave up my career to become a full-time housewife, just so I could be there for him at all times. Now that I'd seen through the illusion of love, I decided it was time to return to music. With Tiana's help, I opened my own studio. Once my mind was free of emotional distractions, the inspiration came rushing back. Within just a month, I released 2 songs. Both gained some traction, and I started attracting a small but loyal group of fans. They left supportive messages on music platforms, cheering me on. Reading their warm comments every day gave me a renewed sense of hope. I felt that maybe, just maybe, starting over had been the right choice after all. Just when I had begun to enjoy this new life, Ryan reappeared in my world. That day, I had just finished working overtime and was carrying a box of fresh dumplings home. On the way, I had the persistent feeling that someone was following me. I was about to call the police when I was suddenly pulled into an all-too-familiar embrace. I froze on the spot. Neither of us said a word, but after a moment, I felt something warm and wet at the base of my neck. He was crying, silently. I pushed him away in disgust, but Ryan's arms only tightened, like he was trying to absorb me into his very bones. "I finally found you," he murmured hoarsely, his voice trembling like someone who had just recovered something he thought lost forever. I furrowed my brow deeply and shoved him away with all my strength before slapping him across the face. "Ryan," I said coldly, "I assume you've seen everything I sent. With the things they are, how do you still have the nerve to show your face in front of me?" His cheek turned sharply from the force of my slap, a red imprint blooming across his face. But he didn't flinch, didn't even seem to feel the pain. He just stepped toward me again, slowly. "Lois, please," he begged, "come home with me. You can hit me, yell at me, whatever you want, I won't fight back." His eyes were red and his voice trembled so lightly it was barely audible. I stepped back, matching his steps in reverse, my jaw clenched tight. "Ryan," I said through gritted teeth, "if you have even a shred of decency left, if you remember even a fraction of the love I once gave you, then please, I'm begging you, let me go." But it was like he couldn't hear me at all. His gaze stayed fixed on me, tears falling endlessly, his sorrow so raw it looked ready to swallow him whole. I stopped walking and stared at him. If this were before I knew he'd cheated, I might have softened at the sight of him like this. But now, I felt nothing but a deep, cleansing sense of vindication. I shoved him away firmly. "Ryan," I said coldly and clearly, "everything we've become is your own doing. Do you remember what I told you once? I'll remind you." I looked him in the eye. "If you betray me, I will never forgive you." My words, colder than ice, finally broke through his defenses. He turned away, unable to face me anymore. But his trembling shoulders gave him away. He wasn't calm, he was in torment. But what did that have to do with me? He had brought this on himself. I turned and walked away. But Ryan followed, step by step, like a lifeless shadow. I tried to ignore him, but he kept pushing his luck, trying to follow me into the house. Finally, I snapped. I turned and slapped him again. "Ryan, how can someone like you even exist? Do you have no shame?" I stared at him, fury rising in my chest. "In my whole life, the biggest regret I have is ever meeting you." He suddenly grabbed my hand, the one I hadn't yet pulled away, his grip tight and desperate. "I was wrong," he pleaded. "I know I was wrong. Please, just give me one more chance to prove it. I'm begging you. I yanked my hand away and shoved him out of the doorway. Ryan, how can you even ask me to forgive you? Did you ever stop to think how I'd feel when I found out about your affair? Before I could finish, Ryan cut in. I did think about it, he shouted. I did. Oh, really? I snapped. And what exactly did you think? That I was just some infertile woman? That as long as you kept it secret, I'd never find out your dirty little affair? My voice rose with every question, cutting into the night like a blade. Step by step, I moved closer to him. Ryan backed away, shaking his head, tears streaming down his face like a broken dam. Honestly, in all the years I'd been with him, I had never seen him cry like this. And now, after I'd finally granted his wish, handing over the title of Mrs. Carter to his new lover, what was he crying for? My gaze as it fell on him was as cold as ice. Stop pretending, Ryan. You never truly loved me. The only person you've ever loved is yourself. I love you, Lois, he choked. You're the only person I've ever loved in this world. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at me, rushing to explain. I admit I was wrong. I was selfish and thought if I just hid it well enough, you'd never find out. But I get it now. I do. I've already made Jessica get an abortion. Please, come home. Let's start over. We can still have our own child. Looking at his desperate, apologetic expression, I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. You really are something, Ryan. Did you always think I didn't want children? I locked eyes with him. Well, let me tell you the truth now. The reason we never had a child isn't because I didn't want one. It's because I developed complications after saving you from that icy river. That's why it was so hard for me to conceive. Ryan's eyes widened in disbelief. His tears flowed even faster. What did you say? He stammered, his voice trembling as if refusing to accept the truth. I repeated it calmly, word for word. Then I said the only thing left to say, Ryan, you don't deserve me. And with that, I slammed the door in his face. He stared at the closed door, swaying where he stood, like he could collapse at any moment. For several days after, Ryan followed me everywhere, refusing to leave. I finally threatened him. If he didn't get out of my life, I'd release the video of his affair with Jessica to all his business partners. Ryan didn't speak. He just looked at me with endless sorrow in his eyes. In the end, I released the video. The Carter Group immediately plunged into crisis, with the scandal threatening to destroy the company. Ryan had no choice but to return to the country to clean up the mess. Before leaving, he told me, even if you never forgive me, I'll never give up on you. Once I've handled everything, I'm moving to France, forever, to be with you. I didn't say anything. Words were useless now. I quietly began the process of applying for a visa to another country. 3 days later, just after I'd received my new visa, I got a call from Jessica. Lois, she said, her voice full of venom, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be left infertile for life. Ryan belongs to me. If he dies, he'll die by my side. Her crazed words sent a chill down my spine. Something felt very wrong. Not long after, I received a call from a friend back home. He told me that after Ryan returned to the country, he sold the company at a huge loss. On his way to the airport, he was deliberately hit by a speeding car. The driver was killed instantly, and Ryan was left critically injured and unconscious. His legs might never recover. I raised an eyebrow. Got it, I said simply and ended the call without another word. That friend had been there from the very beginning of my relationship with Ryan. After a heavy sigh, he hung up too. After that day, my life slowly returned to a state of peace. A few days later, I was working late at the recording studio when I started receiving call after call from unknown numbers back home. Finally, I stepped outside to take one. As soon as I answered, I was met with the sound of gut-wrenching sobbing. Lois. Ryan's mother cried. I know I shouldn't be calling you, but Ryan might not make it. The doctors say he's given up on life. He doesn't want to live anymore. Please. You're the only one he ever truly loved. I only have one son. I'm begging you, please. Just come see him. Listening to her cries, my heart wavered. Although I hadn't spent much time with Ryan's parents during our marriage, they had always treated me kindly. Every time we met, they gave me the warmth I used to feel from my own parents. Even though things between Ryan and me were beyond repair, hearing his mother cry like that stirred something in me. As I hesitated, unsure what to do, I heard another panicked voice through the phone. Ryan's father had fainted from the stress of seeing his son in such a state. The line briefly went silent, then returned to Ryan's mother, trying to compose herself, but the grief still heavy in her voice. I sighed, and I decided I'd go back home for a visit. Tiana didn't try to stop me, she just offered gentle reassurance. Just, don't put too much pressure on yourself, okay? I told myself I was doing it for his parents. So I nodded and boarded the plane home. After landing, I went straight to the hospital. When I saw his parents, I was taken aback. They had always been short and gentle, but now they looked like they'd aged 10 years in mere weeks. Their faces were lined with exhaustion and sorrow. They led me to the ICU doors and pleaded with me to say a few kind words to Ryan. Through the glass, I could see him lying there on the hospital bed, tubes running in and out of his body. I stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to say. His mother fainted more than once during those days. I had no choice but to stand in front of the glass and talk to Ryan, telling him stories from the past, memories of better times. Several days passed, and though Ryan didn't wake up, the doctor said he no longer seemed determined to die. It was the first positive sign. His parents clung to that sliver of hope, crying tears of relief. A week later, Ryan finally regained consciousness. Once his vitals stabilized, they transferred him to a regular room. That day, his parents brought me to see him. But Ryan, contrary to everyone's expectations, turned his head away the moment he saw me. He used what little strength he had left to push me away, saying he didn't want to see me. No matter how much his mother begged, he wouldn't turn back around. I didn't fight it. I said goodbye to his parents, boarded a flight back to France that very day. When I landed, I saw a message from Ryan. I'm sorry. I know everything that's happened is the punishment I deserve. I accept it. I no longer deserve to chase after or hold on to you. I won't bother you again. I just hope you won't forget me too quickly. I deleted the message. Then I removed the SIM card and tossed it. This time, I could finally begin a brand new life.